it is time to take a look at the actors who pretty much made it a competition to see how many times that they could end up sleeping with the fishes in movies, and who really can take the car kick crown for dying the most. In this case, we'll be looking specifically at those actors with epic body counts, as well as those you may be shocked to learn have died quite so many times. So with that in mind, I am Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are actors with shockingly high movie death counts. Charlize Theron, 25 movie deaths. The only woman to rack up the deaths high enough for this list. Charlize Theron isn't the first name you think of when considering people passing away on screen, but with 25 deaths to 52 films, her chances of biting it during a feature are higher than most. Playing everything from death row inmate Eileen Wuornos to superpowered immortal in Hancock, Theron has worked hard at establishing her brand of authenticity across every genre in the book, and then been impaled by a murderous plant demon as thanks for it. Now, the only death that matters, incidentally, is the one in Prometheus, in which her character Meredith Vickers forgets how physics works entirely and runs in a straight line away from a crashing spaceship. Whilst her death in Monster by lethal injection was Oscar-winning, and aging to the point of decrepitness in Snow White and the Huntsman was fun and all, forgetting to zigzag is still the only one that serves as a lasting memory, isn't it? Michael Biehn, 28 movie deaths. The man behind Hicks in Aliens and Kyle Reese in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Michael Biehn has played the blonde-haired hero plenty of times throughout his film career, racking up over 100 credits in various TV and movie projects since the late 70s in his screen time. And whilst he's still going strong and knocking out film work to this very day, his on-screen counterparts don't quite have the same luxury, with at least 28 characters dicing with the Grim Reaper over the span of his back catalogue. From getting potentially the most offensive death of all time in Alien 3 when he's unceremoniously offed in his sleep pod, still not over it, to getting crowbarred through the head in Stiletto, he's got a pretty gnarly range of death sequences under his belt. And speaking of gnarly deaths, what is the most unpleasant movie death that you have seen on screen? Let me know in the comments down below, my friend. Liam Neeson, 28 movie deaths. Considering that he's the man with a very particular set of skills, you'd think taking on Liam Neeson would be a death wish in itself. Instead, Neeson has quite the collection of methods for dispatching himself as much as his enemies, managing to get himself killed off 28 times over his career as an actor, appearing in the flesh as well as in the fur. One memorable death for Neeson comes when Aslan the lion is stabbed upon a stone altar in the Chronicles of Narnia, becoming the embodiment of Christ as he rises again to rip a load of evil fantasy creatures a new one for his untimely murder. And whilst he is often taken out in action movies, and by one rogue airstrike in Anchorman, killing Neeson does not mean that he can really be stopped, to be honest, since he comes back almost as often as he's killed off in the first place. You can't keep a good Neeson down. For proof, see him as a spectre in high spirits, and as a big bad force ghost himself in the Star Wars franchise too. Samuel L. Jackson, 34 movie deaths. With a filmography as long as Samuel L. Jackson's, you are inevitably going to rack up some time in the afterlife, with the cinema legend jumping in at 34 fatalities that we get to see play out on screen. That is 30 plus times we see cinema's most popular actor get his just desserts, with his deaths having ranged from the poignant to the messy to the downright hilarious. You don't come for Nick Fury himself and miss, after all. Roughly 180 films to his name later, and we've seen Jackson get turned to dust and float away on the wind in Avengers Infinity War, get pummeled into the earth by King Kong in Skull Island, and of course be bitten in half by a genetically engineered shark midway through giving a rousing speech on not getting bitten in half by genetically engineered sharks in Deep Blue Sea. If there was a prize for most ridiculous deaths, and there is because I am making it right now, Sam Jackson would win it a dozen times over. We'll send it in the mail. Mickey Rourke, 35 movie deaths. Originally a boxer who turned to acting by chance, Mickey Rourke has been in plenty of movies over his 40 years in the film industry, sharing his imposing frame and iconic performances. Turns out being big and bad is not protection from getting well and thoroughly whacked, however, since Rourke has died 35 times on screen, shooting his fatality average to over 1 in 4 of his movies featuring some sort of gruesome death. Getting his soul reclaimed by Robert De Niro, aka the devil himself in Angel Heart, getting blown to smithereens by his own volition in Iron Man 2, and suffering from a heart attack in the acclaimed Aronofsky film The Wrestler are just a few of his memorable walks down Death Valley in the years since his debut. Mostly he just gets shot to death though. Seems a much safer way of taking down a man trained in how to beat the stuffing out of you, in fairness. Keep your distance. If you're finding this look at the deadlier side of the movies quite interesting, then hit that subscribe button for even more fascinating What Culture videos just like this one. Well, not just like this one, they'll be a little bit different, but you get the point. Bela Lugosi, 36 movie deaths. Being the big bad comes with a price, my friends, and that means Bela Lugosi came to a grisly end more often than not across his sprawling career, biting the dust almost as much as he bit necks when playing Dracula, which may come as a surprise actually, given his career outside of Dracula isn't as well known. With 36 on-screen fatalities out of his 116 movies, Lugosi started off humbly with stakes to the chest in the aforementioned Dracula, and getting his neck snapped by a gorilla of all people in the 1931 movie Murders in the Rue Morgue. And even though Lugosi tragically died of a heart attack in 1956, he still got his final movie deaths thrown in by Plan 9 from Outer Space in 1959, in which he gets treated to a double whammy of being hit by a car, resurrected, and then turned into a skeleton by alien deactivation. Well, that's one way to go out, I guess. Vincent Price, 50 movie deaths. One of the kings of old-school horror and a black and white phenomenon in his own right, Vincent Price has done his share of being the monstrous villain in need of a good dead enough, getting a whopping 50 fatalities on screen out of his 200-plus movies. The man was a force of nature since his debut in 1938, establishing himself as a spooky icon and a mustache expert over and over again, as he appeared and subsequently disappeared from horror movies via plenty of varied and horrible methods of execution. He's drowned in a vat of wine, burned in a house fire more than once, been eaten alive by crocodiles, been strangled by a magical skeleton arm, fallen on a cave stalagmite in a struggle, and had just about every other random fateful death play out in between. And before his death in 1993, Price featured as the inventor who suffered a heart attack in Edward Scissorhands, leaving a lasting horror legacy in his wake. John Hurt, 50 movie deaths. Apart from being a damn fine actor, John Hurt really lived up to his surname via the way of all his on-screen deaths he accumulated over a ginormous 200 movies and 50 years on screen. Over the course of his lofty career, Hurt embodied the good and bad of human existence through a myriad of characters he stepped into the shoes of, and a whole helping of trauma with all the bodies he left behind too. Hurt most memorably has a fantastic death in the Alien series, dying in the first film to a chestburster breaking through his ribs and splattering his crewmates with his insides. Yep, that moment will live on forever. It gets me every time. As for all of his other moments in the afterlife, Hurt has a selection of just about everything from suffocation to exorcisms to all manner of gun wounds and stabbings. He did it all, this guy. Another favourite comes from his time as Hazel the Rabbit in the animated movie Watership Down, as his spirit peacefully hops out to adventure through new realms. Somehow one of the less scarring deaths that have found their way onto this list. Eric Roberts, 54 movie deaths. Perhaps most well known to movie fans today for his role as Salvatore Maroni in The Dark Knight, Eric Roberts appears to be gunning for some kind of on-screen movie death record, with the vast majority of his character demises coming in the direct-to-video space over the last 15 years. Roberts has over 700 on-screen credits, yep, 700 in a career that spans all the way back to 1978, making him one of the most prolific actors of the 20th and 21st worst centuries, and one who, at the age of 69 currently at the time of recording, is showing no signs of stopping. The dude was in 42 movies in 2024. He cannot be quenched. As far as his more memorable deaths go, he was killed in a car crash in the aforementioned Nolan Batman sequel, stabbed and shot by Sly Stallone and Jason Statham in The Expendables, and bludgeoned to death by Kim Basinger in Final Analysis. Christopher Lee, 70 movie deaths. As seems to be a curse on the actors that have donned the fangs of goth vampire extraordinaire Dracula, there is only one that can outdie Bela Lugosi and the other names higher up this list, and that is the White Wizard of Isengard, the pagan lord of Summer Isle, Count Mother Fluffin Dooku himself, Christopher Lee. The man with 70 fatalities and a gargantuan 280 films under his belt. If you can dream up a ridiculous death, then it has probably already happened to Lee on screen. He's been shot, staked, stabbed, sawn and torn apart in every which direction an actor can be, racking himself up a film career that spanned from 1939 to 2015, and left various body parts strewn about the almost century that he was active in the process. In essence, Lee is a staple of cinema history, and whilst his numerous deaths will go down as some of the most plentiful and dramatic of all time, it's his treasured acting ability that will serve as most memorable. Unless we're counting that time that he got electrocuted by a gremlin in the new batch, of course. What a legend.